I know.
May I? Welcome. We're going to talk about the history of the Branchville Borough Historical Society. Borough, because Branchville is way bigger. But this is just about the borough. We are very particular. So we're just doing borough, which at first I didn't understand why that was important, but after dealing with this for a while, it's very important. So we're the borough. Am I coming through that speaker okay? All right. So I need to read, and it's going to take me about 4 minutes. I'll try to read quickly because I don't have a lot of familiarity with the Historical Society's history. I have more familiarity with some of the history, but not the society. So this is about how it got started. 25 years ago, in a firehouse around the bend, the Branchville Borough Historical Society came into being. The society was begun by a few who had a strong love of their historical town. There had been an earlier group known as the Culver Brook Restoration Foundation who had done an impressive work in the field of preserving local history in our area. And then more people gathered to plan the anniversary celebrations of the naming of and the incorporation of Branchville. These were big events which involved parades, town tours, parties, and fireworks. When it was finished, the planners knew that the history of the town was too important to let it end. And so Joe Cadella, with the nudging of his wife Ellen, joined forces with Dave Bathgate, Bill Bathgate, and his wife Beverly. Jerry Van Gordon, along with Ralph Howell and Nellie Stiers Howell, were engaged soon after. This group founded the Branchville Borough Historical Society on October 16, 1998. Tom Bain drew up the necessary paperwork to incorporate the society on July 1st, 1999. Once the primary organization was complete, it was time to invite the public. The first meeting was held on November 4th, 1999, in the new Firehouse Bays as the hall was occupied. It is remembered that there were quite a few people there, and everyone was pretty excited to be a part of this new historical society. The society was specifically dedicated to the preservation of the history of the borough of Branchville. Meetings were held at the firehouse 4 times a year for the purpose of educating and entertaining folks through a variety of historical programming. The BBHS branched out into the community with other events such as gingerbread house construction, holiday parties, Easter egg hunts and duck races, scarecrow contests, and participation in town and county events. The museum is probably the biggest achievement of all. The BBHS did receive much of what the Culver Brook accumulated, but when it became obvious there was no way to house the entire collection, artifacts not from the town were auctioned off. The remaining items were stored in the basement of the schoolhouse. The BBHS leadership continued to search for a space to display this wonderful artifact until the town voted in May of 2012 to allow the museum space in the new municipal building, the Branchville Elementary School. After much volunteer organizational effort and plenty of elbow grease, the awe-inspiring museum opened upstairs in the municipal building on October 26, 2013. The quarterly meetings moved to the site in 2015. The saying, "It takes a village," cannot be better illustrated than through the history of BBHS. The town council and mayors have been instrumental in many ways, most notably by donating space for the museum and meetings, as well as manpower from the road department. Branchville Host Company number 1 was the site of meetings for 16 years, and the department members have served as workers since we began. The production of this newsletter, this came out of the newsletter, is twice a year, is another amazing feat. Joe has written it since 1999, accepting a 5-year hiatus when Pat Torriello took over. I used it to trace the history of the society and found it filled with historical tidbits and current events that took me down memory lane. Presidents, Joe Cadella, Dave Bathgate, Bill Bathgate, Diane Brookhart Seaman, Wes Shelton, Jeff Lewis, John Newcomer, and Jeannie Hankey preceded me in the task of helping keep the mission alive. Additionally, the dedication and hard work of the executive committees, many members, and our visitors over the years have had a huge impact. All have a heartfelt affinity to the borough and a personal connection to the history of the town. And by all accounts, Branchville Borough Historical Society is alive and well. Very good. Very good. And now I'm going to start showing you some pictures. I don't know everything that's in these pictures. I've looked at the pictures, but this is where you guys come into participating in what's happening on screen. So I'm going to turn my back so I can look at the pictures with you. Oh, those guys we know, they're here, which is very lucky for us. And they were in the beginnings of all this stuff. Come on, I'm too far away. First meetings in the firehouse. Here's some pictures of being in the firehouse. These guys are wearing silly hats.
Can we
Yes.
kill the lights a little bit?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, that makes it clearer.
More better.
Okay. Silly hats are being worn.
You all right? Comfortable now?
You see that item that Jeff Lewis has in his hand? Now that, and he's, oh, I have that gavel too. The gavel, I think, was from Kastner's auction house. The inscription doesn't say BBHS, but I have that. That was after Jeff was installed as president. Is that accurate?
No.
Cheryl, the mayorette. Maybe you guys can tell a couple stories about what was going on here. Joe, why do you have that buffalo hat on?
I was, just so everybody's clear, I wasn't part of the January 6th raid on the Capitol or anything. But that buffalo hat came from the antique shop up at the old Lutheran church up on the knob there in Culver Lake, and I thought it would be a good centerpiece, and I'll pass it on to somebody someday. But all the officers are supposed to wear crazy hats when we do the swearing-in ceremony. But we haven't done it in a long time. There's a list of the sacred rites that I think Bill and Dave and Bev probably have them, but a copy of them. But I passed on a copy to Debbie, and one of these days we're going to get together and do the ceremony. There's secret things that have to happen for the president to be to be
in power.
Yeah, to be in power, and we're going to have to redo the ceremony one of these days with everybody involved. So if you get an announcement from Lori or in the Times, everybody has to wear a crazy hat to the ceremony, and we have to go through the boogaloo talk, as I call it. There we are, and that's I think that's Diane passing the scepter, which Debbie showed you already, to Jeff Lewis when he took over.
There's some more.
There we are again.
I have a lot of pictures of this ceremony, and I just didn't know what was going on, but I did know it was silly, because I have read the script, and it's impressive.
It was fun.
Well, that's one of the things that I think is happening in most of these pictures. Everybody's having so many good times, so. He's getting his silly hat and his beads.
And we forgot to get one for everybody but Jeff, so we found a cone for him.
The early cone head. There he is. There he is. Well, I think that looks. I'm sorry. That looks like a lot of crazy fun and antics. And again, that's one of the things they talked about was how much fun. I mean, I think we have fun, but apparently we're not having as much fun as they used to have. So we took this picture in the spring, Jeannie. I think so.
Yeah.
And those are the five of the, I don't know, there were 9 of us, 9 presidents. Anyway, we gathered together here in this room and got our picture took. And now, this is the part that I am just the most amazed at. That's the room next door. It was the kindergarten room. And when the school closed, they left everything up. I mean, they've been closed for a little bit, and there it was. And the town donated the space, and they're examining what's going on there. I don't know who everybody is in all of these pictures, but if you guys know some of these people, you want to yell it out. And that's Lori.
Factorial in red.
That's Pat, okay.
Ruth Ann Weitzel in the light blue.
Here,
I think so.
okay, Ruth Ann Weitzel,
Is that Jeff Lewis?
probably,
Behind her,
yeah.
We used to have pizza parties when we were setting up the museum. I'm sure that was a pizza party while we were working. We ate more pizza.
That was a pizza
That was
party?
a pizza party, yeah.
I think there's a couple of pictures of pizzas
I'm sure.
coming up.
I'm sure.
There's some more.
Yeah.
There's Kate and her now grown-up kid.
Yeah.
Who's this? I'm gonna find my- Who's this guy?
I'm not sure. That's me beside him, but I
He
don't
probably
Yeah.
came for pizza.
He's a guy he's a delivery.
You're right.
Now, this is down in the basement where they were storing all these things.
wow.
Do you know who these guys are? I know that's Bill.
Looks like
Is
Chris
that Chris
Frank.
Frank?
That's
Yeah.
Chris
Okay, okay. Yep.
And Wayne, maybe?
Maybe.
I can't see it from here.
That was the counter from the Garris Center. We brought that in.
Counter from the Garris Center.
One in the green coat is Sue Geimer,
Okay.
because I think her son was helping out for something with the Scouts.
Sue who?
Geimer.
Sue
Brian-
Geimer.
Brian Geimer's wife.
Okay,
I think her son was helping out with something with the Boy Scouts.
okay.
That might be him.
That might be him. That might be young Geimer there. Setting
maybe.
stuff up. Look at that thing. It's a mess. And it looks very beautiful now. All restored. There's Ellen and Bev and Bill.
Nice.
And nothing. I mean, they cleaned all the stuff up. Somebody painted. Who painted?
Chris Tridy.
Chris Tridy painted. And
And we
Tony
went and
Fredo.
carpet.
new carpeting.
Tony Fredo painted a lot. too.
Tony Fredo painted
All the
too?
rooms.
Oh,
He
okay.
painted the other
Yeah.
rooms, yeah.
Okay.
Chris painted the museum.
That was when Tony was fireman Tony, not Mayor Tony?
No, Mayor Tony.
Oh, he was Mayor Tony at that point? Okay. Setting up the stools by the confectionery counter. Again, notice there's like nothing is there. They had to start from scratch. I'm always in awe of what happened in there.
That wall behind that cupboard there, that was all the lattice was showing, was all off. I had to replaster probably about almost a half of that wall there before we could do that.
It's amazing. It's a lot of, as I said, elbow grease.
That's why the ladder stands over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the blackboards were there, right, Bill?
Yes.
Yes, you're right.
Oh, there were blackboards along that wall, and you guys took them down and then plastered over and painted over it?
Is that like a jelly cupboard or?
That was from the Garris Center, right?
Yes,
jelly
The
it was.
jelly cupboard?
That was in the kitchen of the
That's
garage.
very heavy.
That was in the kitchen.
That was in the
Yeah.
kitchen at the Garris's
Yeah.
house?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Amazing. And then,
Table and chairs were from the Garris.
okay, and they're in the back room now. I have a picture of the wall before it has the Branchville sign hung on it, but, I mean, when we just looked at it a little while ago, there was nothing there, it was just open.
Mike
But
Kluge.
that's
And
the
Mike
bridge.
Plume built that wall.
It was,
Yeah, out of the Branchville Railroad Station.
That's out of the Branchville Railroad Station.
that was Beverly's idea. We had the John, where's John? John saved it. John originally,
I didn't do it.
where did you go?
Wait, what?
You
Wait.
talked to Dick Roy, I think, right?
Yeah, about getting stuff that,
About saving, the whole wall. That's, like, that wall, gang, is the entrance into the agent's office. So you're looking, if you were standing at that wall in the Branchville station, that's the entrance into the agent's office and one of the windows that you would go to in their original spots. And John went to Dick Roy and had it saved. It sat underneath an overhang up at the Roy Company,
forever.
right? Until, just correct me if I'm wrong. And it's underneath there, out of the weather, and somehow it stayed together, didn't rot, all that kind of good stuff. And then we, somewhere along the line, it was taken apart, we brought it here, and we didn't know what to do with it, and it was Bev's idea, saying, well, you know, we don't know what to do with that big open spot going into the back room, we need to close it up a little bit. Initially, we just had this room, so Bev came up with the idea to utilize the doorway to get into the back room and fill in that spot with that wall piece. And then Mike Clune, right, Bev did
Yes.
it all.
He did it all.
So that's the original wall, everything there is original except for that sign, that's a sign that, Mike made, I think Mike made it, right?
I'm not sure about that.
I think Mike made the Branchville sign to resemble the old station sign, but all the rest of it is original, the hardware on the door, and, we just had to replace the glass and stuff like that, but, it was a great job.
Thank you for the credit, but I think you were inspirational in that too.
No,
You would have helped. I couldn't do that alone.
No, it was everybody named, I didn't have anything to do with it.
There's another section of the railroad station that has been built into the lower level of my house. Remember the other window? And it's part of the room, between two rooms in my lower level. It's another window that Dick Roy let me have. But
And you-
it's built
You
into my
also
house.
donated a window to the
That was,
museum.
yeah, but I have a wall with a window that goes up and down. Downstairs,
Oh, oh,
Glenn
oh.
Thusted, who was from Sanderson, actually installed that in my house probably 25 years ago.
And also down in the basement, there's was another part of it, was the telegraph office. There was a telegraph office in there too.
And that's in the basement.
Yes, it's still down there. It's still down there.
I need to
We-
tear that
we need
section out of my
another-
house and
We
bring it
need
here.
more rooms.
You want a station story?
Yes,
Okay, so when the station was over there, there used to be a man, well, I should go back. There was a gentleman by the name of Lauren Depew who used to deliver ice in town through the summer, and he also had a brother. They always called him Strawberry Depew, and a lot of times he would sit on Sammy Sullivan's porch or horse store and sell strawberries. And he was a somewhat challenged person. And but he also worked at the railroad station. In the back room where all the freight was, he would move it around. Thank you.
they can't hear you.
Oh, okay. And so one of my father, when he had the Clover River Knocking Garage, he got to know the station agent real well. But anyway, regardless, one of the wise guys in town told Strawberry, you better get down to the station. They need you right away. A whole load of post holes came in, and so poor Strawberry went down there, and I forget I know I have it someplace, the station agent's name, but when he heard that and heard who did it, the poor Strawberry, he didn't know the difference. Like I say, he was challenged, and boy, I tell you, after that, the station agent closed the station, he went uptown, and that guy never made fun of Strawberry again.
Good.
Yeah.
That was a good story with a good ending. So there's some more of that development of the museum, workstation at that table, fans and vacuum cleaners and
Right, that's the same
Look at
vacuum.
those guys.
That looks like the same vacuum, right, Beth?
it's just amazing to me how much work you guys did. Amazing.
Opened 10 years ago next month.
10 years next month.
That's crazy.
Maybe we'll make note of that when we do the Arts and Heritage Tour. That could be our plug for Facebook. Come see the museum, 10 years old.
A decade in the making.
Lori has her laptop out, she's working hard.
They started doing an inventory of the museum, but I don't think we've
It
finished.
didn't get very far.
That's
I'll tell you what, there's too much stuff. I would,
Yeah.
Sonia's not here today, but she was a stickler about making notes about
Yeah.
who brought that, where it came from, what it is, and it just gets out of control. There's so many items, and they show up mysteriously, they just sort of slid under the door or left it on the porch, you know. That's the construction phase of the window. The station agent window. This, I didn't know what this was. And then I went outside and looked at it. It's at the bottom of these stairs.
Yeah, I took
That
that.
sign is right there. So funny. More construction and development, emptiness. Okay, I'm gonna say this was the grand opening party, but I have no idea, so watch this.
Oh, yes, it was cold that day.
Okay,
It was very cold.
so there's a beautiful cake,
Two of them.
2 of them, and there were people outside, they were grilling, and
Firemen
Fireman
cooked hot dogs, grilled hot dogs.
the firemen did that?
Yeah.
Okay. There's fire police. Beautiful foliage out there, Betty Herb. Even if you can't see her face, you see her hat. That was Betty's hat, so she's my Girl Scout leader. And then when you come in, no food beyond this point. Now I know why they had that sign, because they were cooking outside. And there they are, proud parents of the museum. There are a lot of people there for this day. And it looks great.
Yeah, because that was also our 15th anniversary.
Oh, the 15th anniversary, which is why you had the cakes as well as, it wasn't just the opening of the, okay. And then that's 10 years ago. See how good I am at calendar math? Like, I'm getting this. And then, I think this looks like it's, is it Judy Bond? Oh, okay, did you just, yeah. Let me find mine, there. There's Judy, okay. And they're selling ornaments, which, by the way, we are today also.
Not those ornaments, but this one.
Yeah, we have a beautiful new ornament. We'll show you that in a minute too.
Winnie and Milt
Winnie
Jagger.
and Milt Jagger. Again, Cheryl and the mayor.
There's Chris in the front, he's the one who painted.
That's the wall painter of the,
Yeah.
also one of my son-in-law's favorite teacher at Kittatinny High School.
Oh, thank
One of my favorite songs.
you. Careful.
That wasn't on, that's not on the video. Jerry. Anybody else there that you
I
recognize?
think that's
Is that Mike Clune way up in the front on the left? I don't know.
No, no,
No? Oh, from back?
yeah, I don't think so.
No,
And that's, I think that's the end of the slides. That is the Branchville Borough Historical Society logo, which was, there was a contest, and that is the logo that won the contest, and it was designed by Kate Bathgate and her husband, Ken, right? Kate Bathgate Leisler and Kenny Leisler. And they designed it, and it's a woodcut of looking uptown, from the middle of town up Church Hill. That's up on Church Hill there.
That's
This
Jerry right out on the porch. Right
There's So that's the Historical Society's logo. It's a pretty cool thing. And our cake that's sitting up on the front table is from the Yellow Cottage, and it has that logo, edible, printed on top of it. So we'll take a look at it, but we're going to start chopping away at that in a little bit.
From Jerry.
Oh, yes, thank you. Of course, I forgot. Jerry bought the cake. He's such a good guy. He loves us. Thank you, Jerry. And anything else that you can add to this? I think that's the end of it, yeah.
I know we debated leaving those tiles tiles in the ceiling. And there was a great deal of interest early on in those tiles. We had many of the kids come back looking for their tiles. We were gonna take them down, but I think we're all glad we didn't.
The ceiling, painted ceiling tiles up in the other rooms, the students, that was their art project. And when you walk in the museum and you look up, you'll see these tiles, and they dated them, so you know the school year, they're great. I think it was
Yeah.
smart of you to keep them.
The original tin ceiling is still up there.
Yeah, under the tiles.
And here, I think. The original tin ceiling, are still up above these tiles, but they, of course, put these in to, conserve heat and space and all that other good stuff. So they're still up there in case we ever want to,
Expose them?
expose them in one room or the other.
I think that's cool. Even if you just did a section of it, and you could, we have so many ideas in this group. Everybody's got great ideas of how we can develop things, and
There's
hopefully we get to
A lot
them.
of those tiles in there now, those people have their children going to college now, so, yeah.
So they're old. Old.
Vintage, right?
It really is cool. Pat?
The woodcut, was that made from how the buildings were in what year? Before the fire, before the flood?
Yes,
What
What year
buildings,
is that?
what buildings
That was
that are
before the
in
fi-
that
way before
woodcut
the
are
fire.
still standing?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm still gonna go over to Brad for that. The end of her question is, what's still standing?
The school, that's about it. Maybe some of the buildings on the left-hand side and way up further. But if you look on the right-hand side, if you go
This
up,
way?
if you go up like 3 buildings, that was a tavern owned by Bell, right there.
Billy Bell?
Well, yes, actually Billy Bell,
Okay.
but not until after. It really was John Bell's,
Is that a brother or a father or an uncle? If you
no,
don't know this.
that's William Bell, he was his son.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And he had 2 other sons and a daughter.
Okay.
And so kind of what year was that depicting?
I would say, about 1850.
Okay. Close to 1850. That sounds good because, obviously before the fire, Pat, that was a great question, and to say what's still standing, and as he said, not much, because that's the part of the town that burned up. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was wondering if Brad knew, because, I found a sheet some years ago that gave the history of the woodcuts themselves and when they were done. So I just wondered if Brad had anything on that.
Do you?
One of the things, the woodcut was a little bit bigger, and then the circle was taken out of it. But at the left-hand lower corner was a bridge,
Right, correct.
and the bridge, the people don't realize, the brook didn't run the way it does today.
Down here there was a bridge?
Yes, and the brook didn't run that way, the way it does today.
The brook
It
is
went-
over here now.
Yeah, it ran right through the town, and actually, if you go like
Like this way?
where the 9 is on the 19, that was about where, or a little bit, maybe down a little bit, was the Beamer Mill, which was back in the early
Okay.
1700s. That was the first really building.
So kind of where a selected insurance company has their building now is kind of
Sort
where
of
that
like
was?
right in the middle of the street.
Oh, it's right in the middle of the
I
street.
have a bunch of surveys, and a lot of the surveys
Oh,
use
okay.
that building as their reference to what the next, where the thing is, and it brings it right to the center of the town. There's where the mill was, and the brook, you can see the bridge, and you can understand then the brook ran right down through, and if you look at there's a picture of Haggerty's Mill, and you could see that it ran down, right down on the other side of Mill Street.
Okay.
And that's why it was on if you're coming towards town, it was on the right-hand side on that corner.
Because the
and
brook was there.
That's where the brook was.
Huh.
Yeah,
Here I come.
that water was diverted like Brad said, it came down through, there was a bridge down there. There also, the water was diverted. That water that runs now down behind Doris Cooper's house and so forth,
Yes,
that runs under the road, Wanich Avenue, that's where it was diverted to. But he was right, there was a bridge, and there's an early picture of a parade in town and a bunch of kids, but you can just, over to the left, you can just see where the bridge is. And my grandfather swore by it that there was always a bridge there when he came to town, so.
That's-
I read something where, it was one of the, mill ponds dams broke, and the mill shifted over at that point to where it is now.
okay.
Not during the flood. There was a really bad, a dam break that actually, one lady died, and I can't remember her name now,
It's okay.
and somebody else drowned. It was a McDaniel.
Oh,
It was in 1934, I believe, 1834, that
1834.
dam broke, and
and a McDaniel,
McDaniel died, and
or McDaniel.
Daniel, yeah.
Debbie, remember that picture I gave you of McDaniel's house? With
Yes.
the back up against the mill pond?
Yes,
That's
That's
the one.
that's the one, okay.
Yeah.
It's not there anymore. That house is now where the greenhouse is sitting, or close to that.
You were between the brick building and the white garage, that's where, in fact, Carl Moyer and his wife lived there for a good while. I think Jerry remembers that, but that was the McDaniel's house.
And also Doris, the Worthington, the Worthingtons lived there.
Right, absolutely, you're right, that's where Doris was raised there.
I like it when I get something, when I can remember something.
You old timer, you.
When was the fountain put into the center of town?
When was the fountain put into the center of town?
1919, I believe.
Where do you learn this?
He reads.
Am I right?
1919?
I think it was 1919.
You're right, and,
Bill says yes.
it was taken out due to the fact after the war, people were hitting it with the cars and stuff. And they wanted a safe place, so they moved it down, and I forget what year that was, but it was sometime after the Second World War. Yeah.
Very, lots
I
of,
think Pete Pearson might remember that.
Pete Pearson, do you remember when they moved the fountain?
No, I don't, but it,
They're
I
way
think it
too-
was about the same time we got the cannon.
Oh, okay. Okay. The cannon and the fountain went into the park,
So where did the cannon
Hopkins
come from?
Park.
I can remember
Who brought the cannon to
Reverend
town?
Dick Gibbons of the Presbyterian Church talking about how they knew they were getting close to Culver's Lake because the main 206 going by the town didn't exist, and all the traffic went through town, had to go around that water fountain. And that was what they saw on their way, and it was a big landmark back in the day.
So that was a main thoroughfare through the town to see that.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Bill, where'd the cannon come from?
It came from Piccadilly.
Oh, that's
Okay.
good.
206 came in about 1939 because I saw the records where my grandparents sold the property to them from the
Right,
206.
right. And your grandparents own the property that now houses George's wine store and Fran's kitchen. Okay,
Van Gordon property.
okay.
Bill
Dan
knows-
Gordon
Bill
property.
knows where the cannon.
Bill, where'd the cannon come from?
Piccadilly Arsenal, Mike Clune got it to put in the park.
Wow.
Wow,
It wasn't founded in Branchville.
okay. We didn't make the cannon. So,
But it was a nice.
it's a nice addition. It's very patriotic.
Kids love sitting
Yeah,
on it.
yeah.
It's
It's
fun.
nice. So,
Great.
well, I'm happy that there's so much participation in this in terms of knowing what happened when they put this association together and what's happened in town. And Jerry, looks like you have something to say.
It's nothing to do about history, but Bill mentioned Lauren Depew. And Lauren lived out town, but then he lived on the corner of Newton Avenue. And at the age of 99, was no longer driving. And he called Ray Fountain and one day, and he says, you know, I'm feeling darn good, and I'd like you to cover me for insurance for a day so I could go into Newton. 99.
What was the answer?
Yes, they gave it to him.
What, he was 99 years old, and when do you think that happened approximately?
Oh, I would say somewhere in the 60s probably.
Somewhere in the 60s. It was a great story.
He lived on the Union Turnpike, but he had a pond big enough there to harvest ice off of, and he had his own ice house. But when my grandmother lived, or had the house where Gibbons lives now, he would deliver ice there in the summertime.
Everyone's parents would have it he delivered to the house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he'd always grab a chunk of ice off the back of the truck or wagon or whatever it was.
It's hard to even fathom that.
Well,
But-
fathom this.
Okay.
Fathom this, a horse with a plow behind it. It was a Vic Gunn, Dave Vic Gunn. He used to come to town every spring and he'd plow everybody's garden. And it just happened automatically. He'd plow up your garden for you and load the pile back up on the wagon, take off and go do some more.
We're talking about Vic Fenner.
Vic Fenner.
Vic Fenner, yeah. He used to come plow my dad's garden too, and,
And what was his
with a
name?
horse and buggy, come with a horse and buggy, had the plow on the back of the buggy, and then he get done, and he would pay him and leave, I'd come every year. And, also we had the camel farm there, plow the garden a few times too. He used to come there with a neighbor when Jesse Perry lived there and plow his garden, and, oh, that's a long time ago,
Yeah.
and, we, a lot of history there, with the farm and, of course, it's all going, we had pictures of the barn there and everything.
The Campbell barn, is that what you're talking about? Yeah. You told me about the Perrys lived in a little strip of land between your house
Right, yeah.
and now it was Burt Culver's, now it's the,
Where,
I know.
Blevins.
Blevins, that's the Blevins house. And there was a little shack of a house there that the brother and sister Perry lived in, and then when.
Him and his sister lived there, and they had a big garden in the back, and they had also a root cellar right back of the house, big hump of dirt, and there was a root cellar in it. And when my dad bought the pit property, he tore the root cellar down and had all cans of tomatoes and all and stuff. They looked like they were just made, It was all good. And he got rid of them all. And
You didn't eat them, huh? You didn't eat them? I don't know.
they were nice people, Mr. and Mrs. Perry, and they were good people. He used to go around work around in the garden for people in their flower beds, and we help earn a living, and I used to see him go down back and forth from town with a bag of groceries, and there was
Good neighbors, right?
good neighbors,
Yeah. That's.
One other thing here. When I was cleaning out my mother's home, I found that the old taxes for the town for Morris Avenue. And it was 1942, and strangely enough, the taxes were $42. And on the bill, there was a minus $1 for my grandfather and John Doty across the street to to shovel the snow from Mill Street to 206.
Wow.
And bump off his taxes.
That's a deal.
Wow.
That's a deal.
And that's uphill all the way.
There was, who Dave was talking about, the Perrys, he had a brother, Charlie Perry, who there was a house with steps going up the slope. If you're familiar with going out of town with the well, I guess you'd call it the DeGroat House or the Belcher House, it's on the slope there. It was just past that, and then, he was Charlie Perry and his family lived there, but I have a picture of the back of the house, but I don't have the front, but, so there were a lot of Perrys by the name of Perry, and different families of Perrys were
Right.
around, yeah.
Right.
So,
Was are those houses standing now, or are they gone?
they're gone.
Okay.
Oh, there are quite a few houses along there that are gone now.
And
Yeah, Jesse had a brother, his name was Tom Perry, and there was, Tom Perry and, Bill, what's the other one? It was Tom and, can't think of it. Had three brothers, it's like that. You see them come there to Jesse's house, and, one time they had a big friend, some guy from New York, come there and had a great big automobile. The one was back in the 20s, you know, and he would stay there for 2 or 3 days and leave. I don't know who he was, but,
is this in the little house that was next to you?
yeah.
Yeah, right
Wow.
behind Dave's house, yeah.
I find that interesting that the little, tiny little house that didn't really, brag about being rich, had a rich relative that would come and stay there with their big car. That's kind of cool.
And, he, Jesse had a wood pile on the other side of the road.
I remember that.
And he would be out there and chopping wood all the time, and keep the fire going. You see him out there, you know, people would bringing wood there and dump it there, and, yeah,
Was that where the chicken coops were over there?
the what?
Chicken coops?
No, that was just right across the road from the house.
From your house?
Yeah,
Okay.
The fence row didn't sit right along the edge of the road.
yeah.
It was back here. There was a couple apple trees, but Jesse's wood pile had a big area to work in, right, Dave?
Right,
Yeah. And, cause I used to go, I don't know if Dave remembers, grab up the apples and feed the cows that were in the pasture there.
Yeah.
There were no houses on the right-hand side of Lloyd Avenue, Lloyd Avenue
Right,
then.
yeah.
There were no houses there at all.
No.
It was all, in fact, where we lived,
Yeah.
it was all pastures, cow pastures.
Used to hear
Yeah.
the cows and wake up and hear cows hollering out there. It was kind of swampy in there, and they'd get down in there and, just that lower end, and they'd be mornings, you could hear them hollering about, you know, and, it was good, it was good to see them back then, you
Yeah.
know, and,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, most of the time, Percy wasn't up that early, but Esther was. Yeah, and she'd come get the cows, and I know after school, when school was out in the summer, sometimes I used to hang out, and she'd send me to get the cows, you know. And, but they'd be squawking because they knew it was time to be milked, you know, they were hurting. And, a lot of times, Percy didn't quite make it as soon as he should, yeah.
So his wife was upset with him and made you guys go get the...
She was a worker, there was no two ways about that. She was a worker, she was Dick Decker's sister, I forget, there's a whole family of Deckers. They were all good workers, and you couldn't keep up with Esther even making hay. Of course, that was before hay bales, and they had a hay wagon, and you had this big fork, picked it up and took it back into the barn, and
That was quite a thing, though. I remember that, you know. Had horses to pull the hay back in the barn, you know, you know, you see them come out with the spread manure on the fields, you know, and
You smell it afterwards.
you can smell it,
Yeah.
you know,
And this is the Campbell barn that was down by where Montague is in their parking lot
Like,
down there by the...
you can see in the picture Jerry Shea's house
Okay.
over to the left there.
Yeah.
But Percy, was never for getting equipment fixed. And also Bob Campbell, their son, he'd have to load up the manure from the barn and put it in the wagon and take it out in the field and spread it by hand. So I always looked up to Bob Campbell for some reason, and I was a little kid, and so he took me on the wagon. So he didn't have to tell him, move the horses ahead. He'd say, yep, and the horses move up by a little bit. He'd start throwing manure.
Wow.
And I remember this one time, he said, yep, and I went ass over head right in my head. My mother was so mad at me, she stood me outside and hosed me off with a hose. Yeah.
Not bringing that in my house.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So I can see Bob Campbell just plain as day.
Is that your relative? Is it Bob Campbell?
Yes, but no, the
It's-
Campbells were my,
Yeah.
I guess you could say my step-grandparents.
Right.
He's coming out for your reunion,
Good,
the
good.
son, and,
So it's
he'll
your,
tell you more stories.
is the Bob Campbell that he's talking about, was that your mother's husband?
My mother's first husband.
First husband, yeah.
He died when he was 29.
Died at
of
29.
leukemia.
Oh,
And then she met my father,
and then we have this, which is
Yeah.
fabulous. It's fabulous.
well, I'll
that
tell
there
you
was
one thing. I wouldn't have any interest in the society. I never would have done anything with it. I'm not talking about me now. I'm talking about Jerry Orr over there, Bill, Dave, Bev, Janice, and Ellen, for the most part. When I was a kid, I must have been 9 years old, I saw Jerry Orr getting ready for the sesquicentennial. He was working like a dog up at Churchill Cemetery, trying to clean that mess out up there. And he and his gang did a fair job of it too. We drove up past one night, we stopped to talk to him. I had never met Mr. Orr before, and he told me all the stuff they were doing, and that something clicked. And that's why later on I got involved in Culverbrook, working there summers and that kind of thing, and then we all finally got together and got the society going. My friend Newcomer over there, who was running the camera, he was always interested in Branchville history, and he was into past, as his moniker used to say. What was that, your email address, John?
Yeah, and now my license plate.
What got everybody together and got this group that exists now functioning was the celebration committees.
175th anniversary.
175th and then the 100th of incorporation. That John, Bev, and the gang started, and I was invited along, and so we got to get things rolling again, and we decided to kind of keep it going with the society, and here we are today.
We were having too much fun to quit.
Yeah, we're having a lot of
That's what I'm
fun.
talking about, all the fun that you guys used
We
to
did a lot of cool
do.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's great. Well, I, for one, am grateful to all of you for this, because it's a passion for anybody that shows up here. They're like, wow. So it is great.
It's the Debbie Lutz era.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, I'm still Debbie Lutz. Are you kidding me?
I think there still was, I can't have in my mind the characters we used to have around town. And we had ears little and ears, big ears. This one, that one. Well, they all had a nickname.
Yes.
But the ones that stick out in my heart the most are Lucy and Andrew Garris. And maybe you've heard the story
Yes, but
before.
it hasn't been recorded, so I want you to tell it.
Okay, so Andrew used to work for the Roy Company, and he was just a little guy. He only stood 5 foot tall, if that. But those heavy wooden carts like we have over here in the room, he'd have them around unloading box cars full of feed and so forth and so on. And that was that's what he did. And he lived in the academy, if you're familiar with going out of town. How do you describe that?
Up on
It has a
Churchill.
little cupola
Yeah.
on it, and then that was the Branchville Academy at one time. But anyway, he lived there with his wife Lucy, and when the weekend came, they'd go down to Dave's Tavern, and they would sit there, and that's what they enjoyed. This was back in the day,
And so Dave Folkrod was behind the bar, and he said, asked Lucy, he said, Lucy, you didn't pee on my floor, did you? No, Dave, I didn't pee on your floor. He said, you wait a while, and how's it going, Lucy? Fine, Dave. You didn't pee on my floor, did you? No, Dave, I didn't pee on your floor. And all of a sudden, a little while later, you hear Dave, yes, Lucy, I'm sorry, but I peed on your floor. But she knew right where the mop and bucket was. It's stupid stories like that.
But they're fun, and they're good Americana for us, so. Well,
I have one more thing.
please.
Joe gave me credit for his inspiration. I got actually roped into doing that and became very much interested. The real person that was for the Bicentennial Channel was Ann Turner. She was on the planning board. She donated her salary for 1 solid year to get this going. And she called me up one day and she says, I know you're the treasurer of quite a few places, and I want you to come and be the treasurer. And my only goal that you have to go, that we don't go broke. And so we did.
So you did, yeah.
And that's how I became, and then became involved with all the jazz.
Yeah. Was Ann Turner also instrumental in Culverbrook? Was she part of that or no? Okay, no. No, that's okay.
Culverbrook was with Sally.
Francisco.
San Francisco.
Ah, yes.
Martin Struck and Ed Wingenroth.
Okay.
Those were the four. I was the treasurer, and that's when we got started.
One of their originals just passed away, Jerry Dollar, if you remember her. She was instrumental, not so much in the historical part,
What's
but
her
in
name?
the Jerry Dollar.
Okay.
She just passed away recently. She was involved in the theater part of it, the country theater part. And I know some of you aren't theater fans, but nonetheless, she was one of the originals with Sally Francisco and Ed Wegenroth group.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that little theater was a big part of a lot of people's growing up around here. A lot of kids were into that and made friends and came out of their shell because of that theater, the country theater. Was that the name of it?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna stop at this point